following is a presentation of the Liberty Flames Sports Network from Van Wagner. Welcome to the Liberty Flames Clubhouse Report from Van Wagner on the Liberty Flames Sports Network. The Flames Clubhouse Report is brought to you by Fakes Jewelers. Since 1930, trusted for generations. Stay tuned for the latest views on Liberty Flames baseball, a look around the ASUN Conference, and we'll catch up with Flames head coach Scott Jackson. Now, here's the voice of Flames baseball, Nick Pierce.
Hello again, and welcome to another edition of the Liberty Flames Clubhouse Report on this Friday as the Liberty Flames take the show on the road to close out the regular season this weekend against the Kennesaw State Owls for a 3-game series. Nick Pierce with you. Thanks so much for stopping by to talk a little Flames baseball with us. Coming up on this week's show, we've got the head coach of the Flames. As always, Scott Jackson will join us. We'll talk a little bit about the series coming up this weekend. Also, the fact that the Flames have already clinched the number 1 seed in the North Division. And we know Liberty will be hosting Bellarmine next weekend in Lynchburg in a best 2 out of 3 series, with the winner moving on to Jacksonville to play in the ASUN Championship. We'll get a first take from the head coach on the Bellarmine Knights matchup and also a look ahead to this weekend series. And also, we got into some interesting stuff as well, just related to velocity and how much more of it there is in the game now. Exit velocity from the hitters and, of course, pitching velocity, the stronger arms now, and guys running well up into the 90s, and it just seems so commonplace now. We're going to talk to the Flames head coach, get his take on that a little bit later on. Also this week, we'll be joined by Flames designated hitter Brady Gulakowski. Nobody hotter than him right now on the Flames ball club. You look at what Gulakowski's done in his last 10 ball games, or really the last 9 ball games. He's hitting .464 with an OPS north of 1,600 and 5 home runs in that span. Just an incredible run that Gulakowski's on right now. And, of course, it's been a arduous journey back for him after suffering a ACL tear last summer, and he was cleared to play just before the start of the season. Really quick comeback. We'll talk to Brady about the rehab that he went through and much more as we visit with Gulakowski on this week's show. So looking forward to those conversations. Before we get there, though, let's kind of give you an idea of where the club is heading into this weekend. As I said, Liberty has already wrapped up the ASUN North Division. So in terms of standings and in terms of conference seeding, these games really don't mean a whole lot this weekend. However, they do mean a lot to the Flames in terms of building an NCAA tournament postseason resume, just in case things go sideways in the ASUN tournament and the Flames don't win the tournament. They would be eligible for an at-large berth, but you've got to be able to keep things going weekend by weekend, keep winning series. Right now, the Flames are 33-11, an RPI inside the top 40. Checking in at 36 at the time of this taping. So that's really strong. 17-1 in ASUN conference play and a respectable road record as well, going 11-9 on the road, and of course 22-2 was the home record for the regular season. Just absolutely dominant at Worthington Field at Liberty Baseball Stadium. And anytime you can dominate at home and at least go 500 on the road, you're usually going to be in pretty good shape, and I think that's where the Flames find themselves here at this point. A couple of different publications this week have regional projections out. Liberty is projected to be interregional by both D1Baseball.com and by Baseball America. D1 Baseball had the Flames slated to be a 3 seed in the Knoxville Regional out there with Tennessee. And joining them there would be Georgia Tech and VCU. According to that projection, Flames would see the Yellow Jackets in a 2-3 matchup. Baseball America had the Flames projected to be in Greenville, North Carolina, in a regional with ECU. The Flames would draw Old Dominion in a 2-3 matchup, with Liberty being the 3 seed, and then VCU would actually join them out there in that projection as well. Of course, the Flames have some experience against the VCU Rams this year, playing them 4 times, winning 3 of those ball games. So projections are always fun to look at, but certainly the Flames for now just need to focus on taking care of business and keep on winning series and putting themselves in good position to be considered, if need be, And, of course, if the Flames win the conference tournament, then they wouldn't even need that at-large bid. So that's always the best way to go. Good weekend last week. Obviously, the Flames won all 3 games, so that made it a great weekend. But also, it was fun to have Senior Day on Sunday, send the Flames 5 seniors off with a victory in their final regular season home game. Liberty's seniors being recognized before the game included pitcher Trevor DeLate, pitcher Fraser Ellard, shortstop Cam Locklear, third baseman Trey McDyer, and right fielder Jake Wilson. Special pregame ceremony. All those young men presented with plaques of their uniforms and walked out onto the field by their parents. Great to see that. And then Saturday, in the second game of that series, special dedication ceremonies at the ballpark involving the Bream family. Uncle Leroy Bream, kind of the patriarch of the Bream lineage at Liberty University, recognized with the baseball reception offices named after him, the Leroy G. Bream reception offices, and the entire Bream family, or pretty much most of them, were there to recognize Leroy Bream. A very special ceremony there. And then also Sid's radio booth, the Sid Bream radio booth you hear me refer to all the time on the air. Donation given by Sid's children to get that booth, that facility named after him. And we had Sid on the air, and also Tyler Bream. It was good to catch up with him as well, former Flames All-American. And just a really cool weekend to visit with those two, and they have the entire Bream family there as well. So a lot of good things happening around the ballpark last week, and of course, as I said, spotlighted by the Flames winning all 3 games in that series against Kennesaw State. A couple of masterful pitching performances as well. Trevor DeLate, complete game shutout on Friday. He goes on to win ASUN Pitcher of the Week honors. Finally, right? We've seen DeLate have some spectacular performances this year, but hadn't been rewarded with the ASUN Pitcher of the Week honor, and, well, he got it this week. Also, Brady Gulakowski named Conference Player of the Week for all the reasons I just mentioned a little while ago. So very cool. Great to see those guys getting recognized. And I think the Flames are going to be well represented on the all-conference team and possibly have a shot at Player of the Year. But the Flames have multiple guys that could be in that discussion, so that'll be interesting to see as well. You know, you could make a case for Gray Betts in terms of his slash line this year. Leads the team in hitting at .350, on base .463, slugging .515. That's pretty much top 3 or top 5 in the league across the board right there. Doesn't quite have some of the power numbers that I think you typically look for a conference player of the year, but his extra base hits have gone up for him this year, certainly. He's got 18 extra base hits, 12 doubles, 3 homers, and 3 triples as well. I think you could throw an Aaron Anderson into that category. 17 doubles, leads the league. He's near the top of the nation in doubles as well, top 3 or 4 coming into this weekend. Will Wagner, you could make a case for him, hitting .333, 6 home runs, 41 runs driven in. There's a lot of guys in that conversation that are going to kind of be taking votes away from one another. So I don't know how it's going to play out, but boy, that's a good problem to have when you've got 2 or 3 guys on your team that could essentially be the MVP of the league. I want to move back to pitching here real quick. I mentioned pitching last weekend being so dominant, delayed on Friday night, but then don't forget about Dylan Cumming on Saturday going 5 innings, allowing just 1 run in his first weekend start, and then Trey Gibson with a complete game on Sunday as well. Gibby was just outstanding. 6 hits, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, and no walks. First career complete game for Gibson as he moved to 7-3, and the Flames got a 4-1 win last Sunday against Kennesaw State. Now, neither of these teams played midweek games. Had some questions this week about the Virginia Tech game on Wednesday, why that didn't happen. If you did not hear from last weekend, we kind of addressed some of that on the pregame show, but basically the situation was Virginia Tech has 50 games that they are allowed to play this season. That was a rule implemented by the ACC, and they could not go over that. So I didn't hear this for sure, but I think Tech may have scheduled an extra game or 2, just thinking, well, we're probably not going to get all of these games in, so let's get some more games on the schedule just to be sure. Well, turns out they did get all their games in. So they got their games in with Georgetown and Toledo last week. So with 6 conference games remaining on Virginia Tech's schedule, which would equal up to 50, they weren't able to play the Flames again here this past Wednesday. So that's why that game got taken off the schedule. But really, that's maybe not the worst thing in the world for Liberty at this point. Talked earlier about the Flames' resume and how strong it is. I don't know that they need to necessarily go out and play a midweek game to improve the resume. I think it might be a better thing to have those pitchers get some rest, get great bets off of his feet for an extended stretch during the week so he doesn't have to catch a lot of ball games. At this point in the season, there's probably more to be had in getting a little bit of time off and just be able to go in and attack these weekend series. So maybe not the worst thing in the world. So the stage is set. Liberty and Kennesaw State, they'll meet for the 4th, 5th, and 6th times coming up here this weekend. We'll talk more about it a little bit later on. Also give you some of my memories of coming down to Kennesaw State before the Flames and Owls were even conference foes. We'll get into some of that a little bit later as well. And we'll visit with the head coach, as I mentioned earlier. Scott Jackson will join us. But when we come back on the other side, you're going to hear from Flames designated hitter Brady Gulakowski. We'll get into his story, and we'll have more of the Liberty Flames Clubhouse Report presented by Fink's Jewelers after this.
The countdown to kickoff is on.
Willis again to throw. End zone. Caught!
Liberty Flames football is ready to rise in 2021. Rise with us. This fall, see your back-to-back Cure Bowl champion Liberty Flames take on Army, Old Dominion, and Louisiana Lafayette at Williams Stadium. Season tickets for all 6 home games start at just $70. A savings of 51% on single game price. Get your tickets now at lufootball.com. Now, back to the Liberty Flames Clubhouse Report, presented by Fink's Jewelers.
Flames Clubhouse Report continues this week. Nick Pierce with you, and we're joined now by Flames designated hitter and catcher Brady Gulakowski this week. And Brady, big tear for you right now. Just take me back through these last couple of weeks. How much fun has it been to be in the lineup every day?
Yeah, it's definitely been a blast. Getting to go out there with the guys and compete and play some good baseball.
Yeah, and you guys have been winning a whole lot of ball games. That probably makes it a lot more fun too, right?
Definitely, yeah, for sure.
What's the vibe like right now in the clubhouse? Winning ball games, you're playing well. It seems like a lot of guys are playing well together.
Yeah, it's definitely good. Confidence is high and just kind of good vibes all around.
You guys wrapped up the North Division title this past weekend against Kennesaw State. What kind of accomplishment is that for this team? After the way last season ended, you guys going into the offseason, not knowing how things were going to play out, and then having a pretty good team this year and to be able to kind of culminate there with that moment.
It's been awesome. It's definitely something kind of going through the fall and early stage of the spring, kind of looking around at the guys we have and the spots that we wanted to do and we thought we could do. And kind of now that the pieces are falling in place, it's been awesome to see.
Brady Gulakowski joining us here this week on the Flames Clubhouse Report. Last 9 or so games for you, you're hitting over 450. You got an OPS north of 1,600, 5 home runs in that stretch as well. What's really clicked for you at the plate? Has it just been getting more at bats? Because I think sometimes, some guys just need the repetition out there. Has that been important or has it been something else?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Kind of just like you said, the repetitions and stuff like that, seeing more pitches and getting more comfortable again. For sure, a slow start to the season for myself. And there was definitely a lot of long days at the ballpark and a lot of video being watched and a lot of time spent with the coaches and in the cages. I mean, I just gotta kind of give credit to those guys, my teammates, for being there for me and kind of supporting me through the slower part of times, and coaches helping me out and everything like that.
Yeah, Brady, it hadn't been an easy journey for you. We've talked about it before. Coming, it's your third different school now, going from NC State to junior college to Liberty, and now finding yourself in a prominent role in the lineup. What's kept you pressing through?
I mean, honestly, just the love for baseball. It's definitely, like you said, been kind of a little bumpy journey, been a little bit everywhere. But just kind of obviously wanting to play and wanting to become the best that I can be personally has been my driving point for sure.
And then you also suffered a knee injury on top of that, right, last summer. So you get cleared to play right before the start of the season. How hard did you have to work to get yourself to that point? And were you surprised that you were able to get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I worked my butt off. I was told the very earliest you can come back is 6 months, and 6 months was the last day of January. So I was told that was the earliest I can come back, and more realistically, it would be more so 8 months. And kind of when I heard that, I set my mind to just 6 months is when I'll be ready. So like I said, I mean, I worked my butt off. It was definitely not the easiest road to go down for sure. But just kept kind of grinding through it. And like I touched on, teammates were a big part for me. Kind of those guys having my back and holding me up through the process was huge for me. Without those guys, I probably would have had a lot more difficult of a time.
Brady Gulakowski joining us here. And what was the rehab like for someone that's not been through something like that? I mean, you say you worked hard. Was that some early mornings? Was that a lot of conditioning, weightlifting? I mean, just kind of take us through that.
Yeah, I mean, the early stages of it, obviously, we were kind of getting my mobility and range of motion and strength back into it. And there were definitely some early mornings and longer days. I mean, I was doing rehab for around 2 to 3 hours a day. I mean, doing stuff, lifting for an hour to 2 hours. I was doing mobility movements for an hour and a half each day. So, I mean, typically they wanted us to do it around 5 times a week. I was pushing it more so towards the 6 and 7 times a week because I wanted to get back. But yeah, it was definitely tough.
You grew up in Pittsburgh. Would you consider yourself a blue collar guy? Because I think a lot of people consider that a blue collar town.
Yeah, definitely a little bit. Yeah, I think I get some of that from being from there. So,
what about your family? What do your parents do?
My mother is a gymnastics coach. She owns a gym in Pittsburgh, and then my dad owns a rebar company in Pittsburgh. So like the structures for buildings and stuff like that. Yeah.
So obviously 2 hardworking parents. You've got a brother as well, I think, that ran, was it track or cross country?
Both. I have an older brother. He did track and cross country into college. And then my sister plays volleyball now.
And then you developed your love for baseball. You talked about that earlier. When was that?
I mean, I was probably 3 years old when I started getting into it. My dad coached my brother's team, and he's 2.5 years older than me. So he coached his team, and technically I wasn't allowed to be out there, but my dad always brought me out there with him, and I would play on his team and be at the practices. So I was around the field from the age of 3 till now, almost every single day. So,
were there any other sports, or did you know that you wanted to pursue baseball and play in college or professionally, or what was that always the dream?
I was definitely liked baseball the most. I grew up playing baseball and basketball mainly, just those two. And then I stopped with basketball once I got into high school. So I played that up until high school and then just made the full switch to focusing on baseball.
Brady Gulakowski with us on this week's Flames Clubhouse Report. Now, as mentioned, Pittsburgh, was it tough being a Pirates fan, or was there another team that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, it's
a lot of bad years for the Pirates.
Yeah, I'm a big hometown sports guy. So Pirates, Steelers, Penguins, those are my teams. That's what I follow. And watching the Pirates is a little tough at times, I will say that.
You've had a lot of good players. They just don't stick around very long.
Yeah, once they get going, then they start doing a little bit better too recently.
Last couple of things here, just looking ahead to this weekend, playing Kennesaw State, a team that you just saw. Is that advantageous for you because you just saw their pitchers, or does it kind of go both ways and cancel out?
I think it definitely goes both ways. I mean, we obviously both know we're both very good teams, and it's good that we saw what they have and what they're kind of going to do. But on the other hand, they also saw us. So they know our pitchers. They know what we do offensively, how we are defensively and stuff like that. So I think it kind of goes both ways and can cancel out a little bit.
Is it tough to get through this next weekend or, with postseason looming? I mean, are guys just wanting to kind of fast forward to that? Or, is it a veteran group that can go out there and just kind of take it one game at a time?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the biggest thing for us, honestly, this team this year, and I haven't honestly been a part of many teams like it, where we can kind of show up to the field each day and you don't really hear much talk of postseason or a week or two ahead. We kind of just, show up to the field, do what we're supposed to do, get our work in, and then move on to the next day and kind of go day by day. So I think that's kind of been really good for us as a ball club for sure, because coming in each game and focusing on that game, I think has come to our advantage. So.
Last thing here, Brady, what can we find you doing when you're not on a baseball field or in class?
I'm into video games a little bit. Me and some of the guys on the team will play Call of Duty or MLB The Show, and we'll jump on that and have some fun.
Pirates Dynasty mode?
I wish it was a little I wish I could help them out in real life a little bit. You doing that?
All right, good stuff. Hey, Brady, we appreciate the time. Best of luck coming up in Atlanta this weekend.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, that's Flames designated hitter Brady Gulakowski with us. Stick around. We've got more of the Clubhouse Report coming up in a moment.
This broadcast of Liberty Flames Athletics is brought to you in part by Beacon Credit Union. Beacon Credit Union is a full-service financial institution offering a wide range of products and services. Having served Lynchburg and the surrounding area for over 75 years, our vision is to be the premier provider of quality financial services, a leader in our community, and the most progressive financial institution in our field. More information on Beacon Credit Union and all your banking needs is available online at mybcu.org. Equal housing lender, member NCUA.
Back to the Liberty Flames Clubhouse Report, presented by Fink's Jewelers. This week's show continues with the thoughts of Liberty head baseball coach Scott Jackson, presented by Beacon Credit Union.
All right, welcome back here to this week's show as we chat now with the head coach of the Flames, Scott Jackson. And, Coach, you've got 3 more coming up here with the Kennesaw State Owls this weekend. And, it's not often you play a team 6 times in a row. Does it feel like games 4, 5, and 6 of the World Series a little bit?
Yeah, I guess so. You're switching sites and certainly very familiar with their team. A little bit different this week, with the prep. You've watched all your video and prepared for last weekend and, just a little bit more time, on our hands here to kind of go back and look at that and not have to really prepare for a new opponent. So a little bit different in that regard. Looking forward to getting down there and playing them. They're talented. They're very well coached, and it's going to be a challenge for us to go down there and replicate last weekend, especially on the road.
Yeah, and, coming off a series sweep, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. It's certainly hard to do it 6 times in a row, but, not having the midweek game, you talk about the prep here this week. How much different has that been as well, and how have you approached things from a practice standpoint?
Well, it was interesting. On Monday we had several guys getting their second shot. That was our off day. So you really kind of tried to stay in touch with some of those guys, see how they were feeling on Tuesday. We went kind of more in some small groups on Tuesday and really just, allowed them to come in, get their work in. It was a long day for the coaches, but a little bit shorter for the players, trying to get them to certainly get their rest and be ready for the weekend, but also get our work in. And then, Wednesday is going to be more of a team type practice where we can get out there and be together and move around together. And hopefully any residual from that shot, with those guys is gone. The timing was good. It gives us an extra day of practice without a midweek game. So, really just trying to make sure everybody's healthy, rested, getting our work in the bullpen and keeping our hitters sharp and ready to go.
Head coach of the Flames, Scott Jackson, joining us here this week on the Flames Clubhouse Report. And not to look too far ahead, but we do know the ASUN Divisional Series, the quarterfinals are set. You get Bellarmine again. I know that's a club that has your only ASUN loss this year and has played 3 one-run games with you guys. How do you feel about that matchup coming up here in a couple weeks?
Yeah, it'll definitely be a challenge for us. Certainly, they've been in here. It hadn't been that long ago. They're very familiar with the ballpark now, and a lot of things that go with that. Playing them, that third series. So, that'll be 8 or 9 games against them, and they've all been very challenging for us, and something that when you get to the postseason, you want to be challenged and you want to beat good teams. I think they'll be back to close to maybe full strength on the mound with some of their, injuries. If they get Behringer back, who's a big, power arm from the left side. So it's going to be a challenge for us. I think the thing about Bellarmine that's most impressive to me is just their competitiveness and their fight. So when you take that and you add it to the postseason, you've got more at stake, obviously, and I know they're feeling good about getting in their first year of Division I. So it'll be a challenge. It'll be a dogfight for us. We're going to have to play at our highest level to be able to advance to Jacksonville.
Looking at the way that things have panned out here this year, knock on wood, you talk about being healthy. Your team has stayed healthy most of the season. How have you guys been able to pull that off? Some of it, I'm sure, is luck, but then also some of it is you create your own luck, don't you?
Yeah, I think you do. I think, from my perspective, anytime you're talking about staying healthy and keeping guys on the field, not just keeping them on the field, but keeping them playing, at a very high level, I think that goes back to the weight room and Brett Nethry, our strength coach, just the time and the diligence that he puts in to be able to know each player, know their body, know what they need, encourage them from a regen and recovery standpoint to get in here and maintain a routine. And that's really what our sport is. I mean, you've been around baseball enough, Nick, that, baseball is such a regimented routine sport. And when you get in that routine and you do some things that, obviously your body responds to, it gives you a chance to be able to stay on the field. I can't say enough about Dan Pruser and just the same thing, the diligence and the availability that Dan gives our players to be able to get, their needs met in that training room, not just at home, but on the road. It's a challenge when you go on the road. I mean, Dan Pruser's hotel room turns into, another training room, and he's just, the availability and the commitment that he has and the investment that he makes in our players is incredible. So anytime you're talking about staying healthy for the long haul, I think it starts there, and we've got 2 of the best in the country.
A few more things here as we're visiting with the head coach of the Flames, Scott Jackson. Brady Gulakowski, last 9 ball games for him. He's hitting .464, has an OPS north of 1,600, and he's got 5 home runs in that stretch. I'm sure when you recruited him, you knew that this type of production was in there. What's he done to be able to bring it out?
Well, he's really just stayed with himself. He's stayed with, the process of coming back from injury. He doesn't feel great at times, in the bullpen catching. I know there's some frustration there with him just with his knee. It's not quite back to where it needs to be. That being said, it hasn't hindered him in the batter's box. And so, for him to be able, for this to come out in a moment, late in the year, down the stretch run, we knew exactly, like you just said, we knew that was in there with him. It's strength. It's a clean swing. He just, I think, needed to get going and get that confidence in the box. I think it started, right there towards the middle, maybe, 2/3 of the way through the season. And now I think he's finally comfortable in there. There's not a lot of thought, probably, if I had to guess right now. I really don't say a whole lot to go to guys when they're going that good and they're that hot. So you just kind of pat them on the butt and fist bump them, and you really just let them go. And it's fun to watch him in BP. I mean, power's one of those things that I've always enjoyed watching. And you watch those balls go over the batter's eye here, and you watch him hit him off the top of the flame train, and that's impressive. And somebody that I've got a long relationship with. And again, great family, great kid. It's not a surprise to us. I'm just glad the game's rewarding Brady for what he's put into it and how hard he's worked to come back.
Yeah, big-time exit velocities. I mean, you're talking over 105, 108, 9 miles per hour coming off the bat. And, just kind of off the beaten path here a little bit, but not really. A lot of guys are throwing harder in college baseball now, too. And, I mean, if you just let that velocity work for you as a hitter, you're getting some of those crazy exit velos. I mean, what do you make of the game right now with so many guys that are throwing 90 plus? I mean, I can remember not long ago when it was Ashton Parrott here at Liberty, and he was throwing 94 and everyone's hanging over the dugout railing, oohing and on, and rightfully so. But now, I mean, you can roll 3, 4, 5 guys probably out of that bullpen that are throwing 92 to 95.
Yeah, it's a very valid question, and something that, I think there's a couple factors there. I think our game has really dug deep into how to develop velocity. There's several different programs and different things out there that they work. That's as simple as I can say it. They work. They develop velocity, and I think that the line you have to walk there is okay. I want to throw harder. There's some intent there. You are throwing harder. Have we sacrificed anything from a health standpoint, and are we able to throw the baseball where we want to? So, I think you're starting to see some of that in the big leagues. There's a lot of relievers. I read an article, just this week about how, there's more hit by pitches in Major League Baseball than ever before. So you've got guys coming out of that bullpen, well into the upper 90s, and you have to train your hitters to be able to, see that and to be able to react to that and to be able to handle that. We've got machines that, train our guys on very high velocity. I think the thing you have to be careful with too is matching the spin rate to the fastball and make it realistic. So anytime you put a ball in a machine and you're trying to train velocity, you have to be very careful with the spin rate too and make sure it's not a superhuman spin rate where your hitters are training against something that they're never going to see. So we embrace all of that. And I think it's something that you have to be able to do and you have to have a feel for with your hitters in order to have success now, because I never thought I'd see this in the college game, but kids you're exactly right. They're throwing harder than I've ever now, 92 is the old 87. It's crazy how it works and where we are with this. I think that the pandemic too had something to do with that, where there was a lot of time for a lot of pitchers to hit the reset button, and them to be able to go to work and take that next step velocity wise. So, pitching at the college level now is better than it's ever been. And I think those are some of the reasons why.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that was the story by Ken Rosenthal in The Athletic.
Correct. Yep,
yeah,
correct.
I read that same thing just the other day too. And it's something too that I feel like that until major league clubs start valuing the guys that can just throw strikes and pitch for 7 innings or so, I mean, you're probably going to continue to see this because, throwing 98, 99, that's what gets you paid. Also hitting 450-foot homers, that's what gets you paid.
No, you're right. And, there's the thing that bothers me a little bit is the contracts for relievers now at the big league level. I mean, obviously there's some of those kids that I've been fortunate to coach, and you want to see them, obviously financially be rewarded. And, sometimes teams aren't doing that. They're just going to grab the next young guy who's still under control by their club and bring him up. And, the velo's there. And, it's just one of those things. I think, from our sport, you're going to see the game go exactly like you said. Whatever clubs value, those are the guys that are going to kind of be embraced and celebrated. I think the strikeouts, obviously we know that, are up in Major League Baseball, and the power numbers and the exit velocities are there. So, clubs are valuing the power over the contact rate. That's an interesting side of it that, is completely different than the game was when you and I were growing up. So the game's evolving and technology's got a lot to do with it. And I think that's what you're seeing now.
Good stuff. We could almost tape a whole nother podcast on this conversation.
You're right. And there's no question about it. It's a whole different generation and era that we're in now.
All right, Coach. Well, hey, we appreciate the time. Best of luck coming up here against Kennesaw State this weekend. All right.
All right. Appreciate you, Nick.
Yeah, pretty good stuff there from the head coach of the Flames. And as always, his comments are presented by Beacon Credit Union as we look ahead here to the weekend series. Liberty and Kennesaw State coming up. Stillwell Stadium in Kennesaw, Georgia on the KSU campus. And I can remember coming down here a couple of times before the Flames and the Owls were even conference opponents. Back in 2015, Liberty opened the season down here. They did something, I'm not sure if they still do it, the Atlanta Challenge. And it's basically a effort from Kennesaw State, Georgia State, and Georgia Tech to get some teams in to play in the South. Earlier in the season, certainly teams want to escape the North, get down south where it's hopefully a little bit warmer, although that's not always the case in Georgia in February. I don't remember it being the case this particular time either. It was still pretty nippy down here. But anyway, the Flames got here on Thursday night, and then we were in social media times at this point back in 2015, so pictures start getting out there from the ballpark. Apparently there was a car accident, and a young lady had driven her car through the outfield wall. There is or at least there was a road, a perimeter road, adjacent to the outfield fence, just a few yards behind there, that the young lady, I'm not sure if she was on her phone, texting and driving or something. Somehow or another, she became distracted and drove up that little stretch of grass and went through the outfield wall, left an enormous hole in it, drove through the field, and then out the sidewall adjacent to the right field line, went through the batting cages. I think may have damaged the bullpen or something else, but it was a mess there Thursday night, and pictures start getting out, and we're all wondering, are we going to play tomorrow? Sure enough, though, I'll give Kennesaw State's grounds crew and whoever else had to come in a lot of credit. They got that wall patched up, and it was patchwork, and you could see the damage down there to the outdoor hitting cages, but we got that game in the next day, and it was a wild game. Flames fell behind, I think, 8-0 at one point, and then they got back in it, cut it to like 8-5, and then Kennesaw added a couple more runs, and then the Flames had another 4-run inning. It wound up being like 10-9 Kennesaw State, and then they added another run. I think they won it 11-9. So just that was about as a wild opening day as you're going to have. But the Flames were able to get that game in, and then certainly Liberty came down here a couple of years ago as a conference series and played a 3-game set down here. Can tell you that the ball does jump here. I was out at the ballpark last night watching the Flames hit, and the ball was carrying at Stillwell Stadium. It will play much different. It will play much differently down here this weekend than it did last weekend in Lynchburg. We'll put it that way. The Flames did a great job. They kept Kennesaw State out of the home run column last weekend, and I think that was a big part of the winning that series. You didn't let guys like Carballo and Tolvey and Norman and those guys with those power numbers kind of get going, and Hodges. But this weekend, it's going to be a little tougher to keep those guys in the yard. Certainly that goes both ways, though, and the Flames have some guys that can hit them out as well. But you hope that it doesn't come down to one of those all-out slugfest. But like I said, the good news is Flames already have the division title wrapped up, so that is good to know coming into a series like this, at least. Look at the pitching matchups. We had a dandy last Friday. We're going to get round 2 this Friday. Left-handers, Jake Rice for Kennesaw State. 8-1 now. The Flames handed him his first loss last Friday. 8-1 with a 1.70 ERA. Liberty will counter, of course, with the ASUN pitcher of the week, Trevor DeLate. Also 8-1, a 2.28 earned run average. That should be a great one coming up on Friday night. Game 2, Saturday, Luke Torbert. The Flames will take aim at the Kennesaw State right-hander. He's 5-4 with a 5.11 ERA. And then Liberty will counter with Dylan Cumming, 2-1 with a 5.86. And then on Sunday, left-hander Ryan Kennedy for Kennesaw State, 6-1, took his first loss of the year last week against the Flames. 4.33 ERA for Kennedy. And then Liberty will go with Trey Gibson, 7-3, with a 3.10 earned run average. Game times, 5 o'clock Friday, 2 o'clock Saturday, 1 o'clock Sunday. We'll have pregame coverage starting a half hour before on the radio at 90.9 FM in Lynchburg, and also online around the world at libertyflames.com. That'll wrap up this week's edition of the Liberty Flames Clubhouse Report. Once again, we thank our guests, the head coach of the Flames, Scott Jackson, and also Liberty designated hitter Brady Gulakowski for joining us. Until next time, enjoy the baseball coming up this weekend. I'm Nick Pierce saying so long, everybody.
You've been listening to the Liberty Flames Clubhouse Report, presented by Finks Jewelers. For more on Flames baseball, check out libertyflames.com. You can also follow the team on Twitter and Instagram at Liberty Baseball and on Facebook at Liberty Flames Baseball. The Flames Clubhouse Report is an exclusive presentation from Van Wagner on the Liberty Flames Sports Network.